the most important thing is an acknowledgement that terrorism has a name and it is a crime. The lack of acknowledgement and the indifference is actually almost re-victimizing the victim. My name is Laura Dolci. I work for the United Nations. I've been there for 20 years. And on the 19th of August 2003, my husband, Jean-Céline Canan, who was then 33, died, killed with another 21 colleagues, with more than 100 injured, in the terrorist attack against the UN headquarters in Baghdad. And on that day, of course, my life changed forever. I found myself alone with our baby child, who was just born. But I had to deal for all these years with the consequences of that act, which was a crime, a very serious crime. It's terrorism. What is very peculiar about terrorism, unlike other crimes, terrorism has, I think, two elements that are very unique. One is the degree and the intensity of the violence, is the intentionality to harm in a way that it is felt for a long time, because normally it hits massively, it injures and maims in a way that also psychologically the consequences stay for long. It's almost like injuries of war, if you wish, but they don't necessarily happen in a context of war. One of the biggest challenges I had was exactly that, not to fall subject to that fear, to try to continue to live with the values of freedom and respect for others and pass them on to my son. The other thing that I think is very, very difficult with terrorism from a point of view of a victim is the senselessness of the act. It's tough enough to be saying to a child, your father was killed, but it's even tougher to try to respond to his very legitimate questions, like, who killed my father? I don't know. Did the person that killed my father knew my father? And the answer is no. No, your father was killed by a kamikaze. And what is a kamikaze? There's not many other crimes where the actual criminal doesn't want to escape alive from the scene of crime. Whereas in this latest manifestation of terrorism, I mean, suicide bombers are very much of a tactic, and it's a tactic that you as a victim, you don't understand. Of course, time heals. At the end, you know, those who remain alive have to take care of those who are alive. That's something that somebody told me during the funeral, and it's been very much my guiding principle, but there's a profound sadness that will never go away, and that's for the incredible life that Jean-Céline lost and his ability to spend time with us and see his family grow. The book tries to make a point that the victims of this crime deserve some specific responses. Some states, more than others, have started to put together programs at different level, but there's much more that needs to be done. We always think of the UK and France and the US, but the majority of victims of terrorism are in countries such as Afghanistan and Somalia, if not Syria. So the means are missing. Iraq. I think in general states should, for one, criminalize the act of terrorism in their code. There should be among states much more of a cooperation, including on the judiciary front, because, you know, as a victim, and we are made of many things. So there's the aspect of justice, but there's also the medical aspect, the psychological aspect, the social aspect. Many victims of terrorism end up not being able to work because they're maimed and they cannot do the job. We have many colleagues of that 19th of August 2003 that lost an eye, lost an arm, so you need also reintegration in your work. In the past, take the 70s, there was national forms of terrorism. In Spain, in Northern Ireland, in Italy, and so victims were mainly victims of that country, and things were happening within the borders of that country. But the world has changed, so it's also difficult for victims to create a national association of victims, which was the case 30 years ago, because the problem is no longer national. So that's why I think the UN is needed, because this is a problem that has no border. And the terrorists are always a step ahead. When I met the first survivors and I realized that they literally carry these pieces of particles of glass that has gone around for the bomb, that's exactly how I feel sometimes. I walk around, but there are some splinters of horrors that I carry inside of me. But it's part of me now, so I go on with that.